Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back once again to Gran Turismo 7. In today's video it's going to be another top 5 money making methods and glitches within GT7. Now my aim with this series is to essentially turn it into exactly that, a series where maybe once a month, maybe once every couple of months we go back, compile some of my old money methods and such, update some of them and come out with another top 5 to keep you guys building cars, keep you guys making money and keep heading in the right direction to get those 20 million plus vehicles. Hopefully as this series continues to grow we can focus on videos such as engine swap builds, glitch builds, cheat builds, etc. This way we can get a nice diverse selection of vehicles built up, as well as bringing up some returning classics from over time. Now some of these builds will need to be updated and such, hence why I've had to update the footage. Some of them still stand and haven't changed in maybe a year and a half. I did get a ton of suggestions previously in my last video, however a lot of these builds I've already covered, so you may see them return at some point. So let's get into the video with number 5. This is going to be the Genesis X VGT. Whilst it might not be the fastest overall car, there is a good reason this one comes in at number 5, and that is because it is absolutely free for the majority of players. Some people getting 2 free of these, considering the sort of revamp of the tickets got a bit glitched, so people have been selling these off and such, and it is also a very easy build to achieve. This is obviously one of those cars that I was very skeptical at first, however since getting this it has just been absolutely pure profit, which definitely gives an advantage and worthy of making this list. Now again, in terms of the price point, majority of people will get this for free, but if not it is going to be a million credits. The build itself is super simple. You're going to run this on racing hard tires. Now because it features very little in terms of customization, as you can see, hence all of this is grayed out and unbuyable from the GT tuning shop, you very much need to do nothing to this car apart from some ballast. So we're going to be running it at its maximum output, adding 85 ballast, putting in a positioning to -48, and that is literally the lot. The racing tires and that ballast is going to give you 799.99 performance points and you are good to go. In terms of the best event to run this one at, whilst it is capable at Spa, I wouldn't recommend it. It's definitely more of a Group C event for me, that one, but it will run at the Sardinia 800 pp event. It's going to be the 15 lap one. Payout is going to be 48500. Again, if you do get that clean race bonus, you will be adding the 50% on top, and that is what makes this such a good event as well. Whilst it is the lowest paying of the typical grinding events, the actual clean race bonus is very difficult to lose. The only time you will actually lose that is under yellow flag conditions, and that is very rare. I've seen it twice in almost 2 years of running this event in different cars. So not only is the car free for the majority of the players and the tune very simple to run, the strategy for running it is also very easy. Fuel mix 6 for your first stint before turning it over to a maximum output in fuel mix 1. Again, the key to this car is short shifting it. You want to be leaving those corners in a very high gear. You want to take your one and only pit stop at the end of lap 8. Majority of the cars around you are going to be on 2 stops, sometimes 3 stops, couple on 1 stops, but again most of them will just hang around at the back, considering they are on much slower tires in a much slower car. So what you're going to do here is put a new set of tires on after running fuel mix 6, and then you want to fill the car to pretty much full. Just ignore the dot. Majority of the time that will lie to you, so just ignore the dot and fill the car all the way up. At this point, turn the engine up all the way to fuel mix 1 and then go to the end on a big long push, and that is it. A very easy method to begin with, a very cheap car pretty much being free for the majority of the player base, which means you are in constant profit with this build, which definitely gives it a massive advantage. So in at number 4, I like to keep these lists as diverse as possible. We're going to head over to the 700 pp Le Mans event, this time using the Honda RA272. In my opinion, perhaps one of my favourite all-time money methods. Now I know a lot of people do struggle to drive this car at first, hence why it's kind of dropped down the list, but if you're in VR or you just want a completely wacky build, this is absolutely perfect for you. So what you need is a set of racing hard tyres. You also want to ensure that you've got intermediates and heavy wets just to cover off any rain. Body height is going to be across the board for 78. Anti-roll bar at the front I recommend 7 and 4 at the rear. Compression once again is 30 for both. Expansion is going to be 35 for both. Natural frequency 255 for both. Negative camera angle 1.8 at the front and 2.2 at the rear. In terms of your toe angle, it's 0.11 outwards at the front and 0.20 inwards at the rear. Now you don't have to buy the differential, but these are going to be the settings. So it's 5 at the torque, acceleration 15, and braking is going to be set to 30 just because of how this car handles. In terms of the gears, 340 is going to do it on a fully customizable racing transmission. I'll also bring up the manual adjustments. However, with this build being so old, I'm pretty sure I didn't even touch the gears. They're basically standard, so shouldn't need any changes even on the latest update. In terms of the downforce, you won't need to do anything to that, but you will need the medium RPM turbocharger. Now you could go down the route of a high RPM, however it does drop the performance points, gives you overall less power, and also drinks much more fuel. And that is what's so good about this car, is the fuel efficiency. Nothing else needs changing on this build, so let's head straight over to where to find the event. Head to Europe, head to France at Le Mans, and go for the middle event here, the PP 700, 30 minutes at Le Mans. So in terms of the strategy, it is very, very easy. The main thing you want to be aiming to do is get it in fuel mix 4. At this point, you are pretty much good for the rest of the race. If you get a dry event, you will not have to pit a single time. Now, although it's rare, it does happen, which is an absolutely amazing thing for this car, because it can essentially just finish the race without a single pit stop at Le Mans, whilst the rest of the field will pit sometimes 2-3 times a go, and you can complete up to 7 to 8 laps every single time. In terms of its straight line speed, it's insanely quick, hitting way over 200 miles an hour even in that fuel mix 4. You'll probably take the lead very early on in this car, considering it doesn't feature downforce. It's just an absolute straight line rocket. Now once you get onto lap 2, you want to start monitoring the weather radar. The main reason for this is the highest chance of rain is around about lap 2 or lap 3. Now as you can see, when I got onto lap 3 there was rain incoming, however this rain did end up missing the track with just a few kind of little patches in between, meaning that I didn't actually have to pit in at this point. But if the rain comes, just absolutely boot the engine up to full and go. But as you can see, with the first bunch of rain formation, it did pass over and didn't affect the track in any single way. As you can see though, once I got to lap 5 the rain was incoming, so at this point, if it is going to be coming in on that lap, put the car in fuel mix 1 and just get yourself to the pits as quick as possible. I ended up getting caught out just quite slightly at the end of the lap by the rain, but I had plenty of a gap to the rest of the AI. In terms of the difficulty for this one, fully recommend easy difficulty. This is because if you get to the 6th lap and the time is absolutely perfect, the AI has been caught out like they typically do, you'll be able to stop and wait and just let the counter go down and cross at the very last second of that 30 minutes, meaning that you can complete this event pretty much dot on 30 minutes. Now because of how this car runs, a lot of the time you're always going to be very close to that 30-minute timer, so it's not always about speed. Sometimes it's just about kind of using your brain and just waiting for the timer to tick down, or just ensuring that, look, if you haven't quite got the gap, complete the lap and you'll probably be done pretty much dot on that 30 minutes anyway. So in terms of the pit stop, you're just going to be pitting for the tyres to cover off any rain. Sometimes it's going to be inters, sometimes it's going to be heavy wets. It was just inters for me on this moment. Sometimes you may not have to pit at all, like I said. Sometimes you will get that dry event. So in terms of the 6th lap, now this is where I'd usually do my stop and wait. However, I looked at the gap, looked at the timer and realized that, well, I can probably just get a single lap in anyway. And again, if I stopped and waited, the AI would just essentially overtake me, and obviously I'd lose the lead. So I did have to do lap 7 this time. As you can see, I did end up lapping pretty much the entire field, bar a couple of cars towards the front end that were just a little bit too far ahead compared to the rest of the pack. But it is possible to be lapping at Le Mans, again just down to the strength of the car and the AI just being absolutely stupid when it comes to the wet and getting caught out and spinning off and such. So very situational, depending on whether you'll do 6, 7 or maybe even sometimes 8 laps. But we are going to get this one done pretty much dot on the 30 minutes, only around about 15 to 17 seconds over, so really not too much considering that we completed the full 7 laps there. In terms of the AI, as you can see, we we did lap pretty much the entire field, bar a couple of cars towards the front. Fastest lap of a 4 minutes 3.862. Again, it is very much affected by the wet weather, meaning that quite often if you're kind of running these lower fuel mixes early on, you won't be able to get the 3 minutes barrier, but this car is very easily capable of that if you are getting that dry run. Now, in terms of the payout, it's 825,000 credits for this one. Again, because of the potential of the car with its fuel and tire life, you may even not have to pit stop with this one, giving this one a massive advantage. So let's move on to number 3 and keep with the theme of fuel economy and pretty damn good tire life. This is going to be the Aston Martin VGT. This is a very old build. It's one that's been around for absolute time, and I feel like maybe players that are newer to the game might not even have a clue just how good this car is in terms of its fuel efficiency and in terms of its tire life. Now, it is going to cost you 1 million credits for this car. It's not the most appealing car in the world. In fact, it's damn right ugly, and it doesn't feature a cockpit if that's kind of your thing. However, in terms of the tune and the build, it is super simple. Sports hard for this one. Now, you won't be changing anything with the suspension. Very much like the previous VGT, it's all about the ballast and a bit of power restriction. So ballast is going to be 198 with a -50 positioning, 70 on the power restrictor, and then in terms of the output adjustment, sure, it's fully customizable and set it to 99, and that is literally a lot. A very easy build. This is going to give you 600 performance points, and I recently went back to use this one mainly because I used it in a one of the weekly challenge races. Now, you're going to head over to Tokyo 600, which is going to be the 12 lapper, 550,000 credits payout, obviously a 50% bonus on top of that for the clean race bonus. The only downside of Tokyo, it is much easier to lose a clean race bonus, so just avoid the AI as much as possible. However, there is an advantage to running this car these days. It is mainly because you can just war ride the entire track apart from the final chicane, where if you cross the white line, you will lose that clean race bonus, so take advantage of that. Now, the main thing we're running here is not overall speed and pace. Once you get to lap 4, the track will begin to dry up. Short shift the car the entire time, so as soon as that rev bar starts coming up, shift up and you are all good to go. This will ensure that you will not have to pit at all here during this Tokyo 600 event, and you can cross the line with a plenty amount of fuel left over, especially if you're absolutely nailing those short shifts. Tire life will be pretty much worn out come the end though, so just be aware of that. In terms of lap times, we're not really aiming for those, so it was a 2 minute 10.704. Overall completion time was a 26 minutes, but this is a very beginner friendly build, and it's the main reason I did want to highlight it. Now, this is very old footage, so the timings and such has changed, and if you use the wall ride, you can probably save yourself a good couple of minutes. But again, just due to simplicity and how easy it is to get the 600 grind done with this one, fully recommend the Aston Martin VGT. So over to number 2 now. So glitch build time, this time using the Mazda 3. This build essentially turns a very useless car into a miniature, absolute ridiculous 4-wheel drive race car using the 787B engine swap and a little bit of trickery to keep it in that 600 pp range. 37,000 credits for the base car. This is a very cheap car overall, so again, you're picking up an absolute bargain. However, it's going to get a little bit more expensive with the 1.2 million engine swap from the 787B, or if you've got one spare, you're going to do a very cheap build overall. I know this one's quite popular to get off the roulette tickets, so yeah, if you've got one, it's going to come in very handy. So once you've swapped it, you then need to do a bit of the aero parts and wheels, so just choose any set of wheels you want. It is completely up to you, so just go with the style you want. However, when it comes to aero, it's a bit different. So in terms of the size, it's 18 wide and then standard for the wheels. Now we're going to move in to the actual aero part. So at the front it's standard, at the side it's standard, and at the rear it's also standard. However, when it comes to the wing, you want to be putting the Type B wing on. After you've done that, it is time to build up the car itself. So with this being a glitch build, I'm going to take you through step by step, because if you get something wrong, there's a high chance this car is not going to go under the 600 pp limit, which we are currently aiming for. So we're going to start a fresh build here. You want to ensure that you've got the sports hard compound of tyre on. Then you want the fully customizable suspension. In terms of the body height, it's going to be 110 for both. Anti-roll bar is going to be 8 for both. Compression and expansion leave as it is. Natural frequency is 310 at the front and then 325 rear. In terms of negative camber angle, you want to set this to 0 and 0. Toe angle, just leave as it is. Then ensure that you've got the fully customizable LSD, leave that as standard. Torque vectoring center diff, I recommend a 50-50 layout for that. Fully customizable manual transmission, then set it upwards to 210. Ensure that your gears match these ratios. So as you can see, we're going to take this one down to 0.727 and then it'll be -384. Then in terms of the 5th gear, I totally recommend going backwards, by the way, on these. You want to set it down to this setting, so 0.805-329. Onto the 4th gear, again, you're going to take it all the way down towards the bottom end of the slider. This is going to be 0.938. Then once again with the 3rd, we're going backwards towards the left, and then you're going to match this setting here. So this one is going to be 1.214-218. Then onto the 2nd gear, finally only a few more of these to go. It's going to be a little bit less than the typical we've been doing so far, so 1.703, and then a little nudge on the first to 2.778-95. So there you go, just ensure those gears match up. Now the trick with this build is that the ballast doesn't really affect the car, which is absolutely fantastic. It almost tricks the game into not really thinking about the massive power output we're going to be putting through it. So ballast will be 118 with a positioning of -17. Then go to your output and just set it slightly down at 78. In terms of your downforce, set the rear upwards of 150. Again, this is going to drop the performance points quite a bit. Strap on the high RPM turbocharger. Don't worry about the brakes and such, they are completely irrelevant due to wall riding. Carbon propeller shaft will then upgrade it, will then drop the PP to 600. Then you've got weight reduction stage 1, 2 and 3 with the increased body rigidity in terms of permanent parts. So here's a quick look at the sheet once again. As you can see, ensure all of this matches. Again, it's very specific, although we're adding on a ton of parts, up in the horsepower to a ridiculous amount. I mean, 771 brake horsepower and a 600 PP build is just bizarre. And then we're going to be obviously coupling this with wall riding, meaning that things like brakes and stuff can go completely ignored. So overall, that is your build for the 600 PP Mazda 3 with the 787B engine swap. A very, very good build that is going to ensure that it turns itself into a 4-wheel drive rocket ship. So in terms of this build itself, it's very, very good because of the 787B's fuel consumption being carried over, obviously, with the engine swap. Once again, just be aware of the AI. However, you're going to be very easily able to outrun them. I recommend with this build running them on hardest difficulty. The main reason for this is you don't want to be tripping over them and having to lap them all the time. However, in terms of the car itself, like I said, fuel mix 1, once you get to turn 1, aim for the side here and then just ride the wall, and that is it. You're in the lead, you don't need to worry about the AI anymore. And then if you really want to, you can just wall ride the entire thing. Now I'm not going to do that in this footage here. You'll probably see me just taking the corners quite nicely, but if you do want to go even quicker to kind of take advantage of the insane straight line speed and obviously not having the use of an upgraded brake system, then just wall ride the entire track. This car's just like the Suzuki Escudo, in which case that it's got a ridiculous amount of top speed off that main straight, and then you just use the momentum to carry yourself across the wall for the entire lap. This is a great build just due to the fact it will not have to pit at all, and because you're going to be using wall riding, once the tires start taking, you know, a lot of life out of them and such, you still don't need to worry about it as much. If you know from the Escudo build, that thing runs on pretty much 0 tire life the entire time. It's the same here with the Mazda 3. Once the tires wear, because you're using wall riding, you should be pretty much golden anyway. In terms of the completion time, a 24 minutes 21,750. That is without the entire wall ride. If you go for the wall ride in the entire time, you will be inside the 23 minutes absolutely easily. Again, I just didn't want it to look too cheesy in terms of the footage. Fastest lap 157.764, which was on lap 11. Again, it does the typical drying out spell around lap 4, and then your lap times will start to absolutely plummet and become quicker and quicker as the event begins to dry out over time. So apologies, this section was a little bit more drawn out, sadly just due to the fact that you have to completely break the build. It's best to explain it as in much detail as possible. 825k for the payout every 24 minutes. However, in at number 1, I went for something, I guess, a little bit more sensible and almost set in stone. This build hasn't changed in a very, very long time. This is a Nissan R92 CP. I did a review on this one yesterday, so I'll have that link down below if you do want to check out my opinions on it. Perhaps one of the best grinding machines in the game. Now, it does have an advantage over the 787B, which I shown in the previous video, and that is price point. This one's only 2 million credits. So, racing mediums for this one. Body height at the front is 75, rear is 85, and again, just ensure all of these settings match. Most of them are fairly standard. Fully customizable racing transmission set to 370, ballast at 6, positioning -50, no power restriction on this build. Downforce at the front at the minimum of 500 and 1600 at the rear. This will drop the PP quite a bit. Medium RPM turbocharger installed, and that is it. A super simple build that now has the potential to run at both Sardinia and Spa. If you run it at Sardinia, you're looking at almost 2 million credits per hour. Obviously at Spa a bit longer, it's 1.5 million considering that is an hour-long race. Now in terms of both of those though, it's very difficult to lose that clean race bonus. Again, it all comes down to the yellow flag, so it does have an advantage there. Now in terms of the strategy for the Nissan, I recommend fuel mix free for your out lap on your first stint. You will be doing a pit stop, but because of the 1 lap potential of this car, you are going to be way ahead of the rest of the field come that point. So fuel mix free just to begin with, just to begin saving a bit of that fuel and ensuring you can get all the way to your first pit stop. Turn it up to fuel mix 1 once you get onto lap 2. You should be overtaking the leader very, very early on. As you can see, mine was at the start of lap 2. Your first pit stop comes at the end of lap 8 at this point. Now what you're going to do here is put a new set of tyres on. The main reason here is your fuel will pretty much be gone at this point if you've been running maximum output. Feel free to balance the fuel mix if you need to. Also those mediums, yeah, you've got real no chance of that at that point. They start dropping off on lap 8. At that point, get them off at the end of that lap. Fill the car to pretty much full because you're going to be going for once again another sprint. Put a new set of mediums on and you are pretty much good to go all the way until the end of the event. Leave the pits, have a quick check behind you to make sure nobody's going to ram you because the AI are absolutely stupid in this event, and then run at fuel mix free for another lap or so. Again, you're just doing the out lap to ensure that you're balancing off the fuel so that you can go for a max push all the way towards the end of the event. So that's why I recommend fuel mix free on both your starting lap and your first lap after your pit stop. Once you hit lap 10, absolutely boot it back up to fuel mix 1 and run at the maximum potential for this car. And that is it, a super simple strategy for Sardinia. Again, when it comes to Spa, it's a little bit of a longer drawn out event and it is time limited. However, still has the same 1 lap potential. In terms of this overall time, it was a 24.5.360. Fastest lap was a 1:32.922 set on lap 3. Very, very low 1:30 potential. Sometimes even into the 20s if you're pushing absolutely ridiculously hard. Now, the main reason I absolutely love this build is because it is just an absolute rocket ship and comes in at a very, very fair price for a Group C monster. A lot of these cars cost upwards of 2 to 2.5, 3 million. This one sits at the lower end at 2 million, meaning that after a couple of races, you're in pure profit, and this thing is absolutely ridiculous for its top speed. 727,500 for that one, or like I said, 1.5 million for the hour at Spa. So again, massive thank you to my channel members: Louis Vieira, Old School Gamers, Crazy Cobra, JRO49, Carl Wyatt, Phil Wilmot, Dominic Saylor, Dan, Sean and Chris 75572 for your continued membership support on the channel. Massively grateful for you guys, and thank you to everyone who took the time to watch this video. Hopefully I can help you get those cars built in GT7. If you have any suggestions down below that you want me to check out that I might not have already done, feel free to leave them and I'll go ahead and check them out, and maybe they'll just sneak into the next top 5 video. Again, hopefully making this a series in the future. Let me know what you think. I'll see you later on. Take care guys. Peace.